What did he want?
Fuck you, Yoko. Get E on the phone.
Just like the majority of us, everyday life can really get on your nerves after a while. Your job, communicating with people, you get the idea. Sometimes you just want to get away and go find somewhere quiet. Some people grab a backpack and head to the forest, the lake, or other quiet places. But we've got something a little bit different for you. Today, we will look at 5 incredible ghost towns which could be a paradise for introverts, sociopaths, urban explorers, and adventure seekers alike.
I don't give a fuck!
If by chance you wake up one morning in Kangbashi, China, you might think that you were pulled into a post-apocalyptic movie. This giant megalopolis in the Inner Mongolia region can accommodate up to 1 million inhabitants at any moment. Here you will find everything needed to live happily. Residential spaces, parks, perfect roads, shopping centers, libraries, a stadium, business centers, bicycles and parking lots, and even a Ferris wheel. But you will not see a single passerby in its streets except for street cleaners.
Hello!
So what made the inhabitants leave the city? The answer is very simple actually. They never came here. A coal deposit was discovered in the region in the early 21st century, and the local authorities, who suddenly became rich, decided to invest a whopping $160 billion into creating a dream megalopolis. The investors figured that it was the kind of comfort the inhabitants of the neighboring towns fancied. But the working class of China didn't hurry to this new urbanistic paradise. According to the official version, the reason for this was the extremely high prices on residential property. Chinese families were not ready to spend $100,000 on an apartment there. Instead of 1 million inhabitants, only about 27,000 moved to the city, which resulted in thousands of abandoned, newly built apartments. However, there are other myths as to why the city was built. One of those states that the Chinese government built Kangbashi in case of a natural disaster. In such an event, China would then be able to relocate most of the population here. In 2011, Japan was battered by a chain of events that were caused by a massive 9.1 magnitude earthquake at an underwater depth of approximately 29 kilometers, or about 18 miles deep. The earthquake was followed by a giant tsunami that annihilated several towns. But the worst disaster was suffered at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant complex after a massive wave damaged the buildings. The deadly release of radiation prompted Japan to evacuate the inhabitants of the neighboring small towns within hours, turning the once happy land into an exclusion zone. If you were to head to Nami, Narahai, or any of the other abandoned settlements, you would find food scattered on the floors in supermarkets, clothes left in laundries, and full beverage machines. It's not really easy to get there because the authorities are reluctant to issue permissions for visiting the restricted zone. Road signs installed along the route display updated radiation information, which isn't encouraging, and you wouldn't want to stay around here long. But even those who dare to venture on such a journey will hardly dare to travel to Tomioka, the most dangerous town which is located just 10 kilometers from the main accident area. Today it is inhabited by hundreds of cats, dogs, and cows, a couple of ostriches, and Naoto Matsumura, an elderly farmer who returned to his native town after the accident to take care of the abandoned animals. The brave Japanese man lives without city electricity, but uses power generators when he needs them, and then shuts them off for the night. He charges his telephone using solar batteries and believes the doctor's prognoses, saying that he won't develop radiation sickness sooner than 40 years. And that, according to him, means he has nothing much to lose. That said, it looks like a human being can survive anywhere if they wish to. While Fukushima scares off the inhabitants for obvious reasons, the story of Sanji, Taiwan might put a chill down your spine. The story of this embodiment of futurism reminds one of Kangbashi's sad biography. The same ambitious dreams about a city of the future, the same unlimited construction budget, and the same daunting emptiness in the end. In 1978, developers built what is now known as Sanji UFO Pod City. But terrible and bizarre things started to happen during the stages of construction. The workers were dying off one after another, either from accidents, car crashes, and even suicide. So many accidents were happening that it became impossible to conceal them from the local population. The frightened Taiwanese started to blame the accidents on the local ghosts, who had allegedly been disturbed by the construction. A huge ceremonial dragon statue was destroyed so that construction vehicles could more easily access the site. They believed this angered the ghosts and that this was the reason for the accidents. There are also rumors that some 20,000 skeletal remains were found on the site, supposedly the remains of 17th century Dutch soldiers. At the end of construction, a gigantic advertising campaign was created upon completion of the UFO pod city. However, it was not enough to lure inhabitants and tourists to the place, and the city remained empty until 2010 when it was demolished. Kolmanskop is a well-known ghost town that grew out of the diamond boom in Africa. This abandoned settlement is located in the Namib Desert. Its story began as early as the times when Namibia was called the German Southwest Africa in the 1900s. Diamonds were discovered in the area, which attracted many treasure seekers who then founded the town of Kolmanskop after realizing the area was rich in diamonds. It soon became one of the richest towns in the area. It was here you could find Africa's first horse tram, model infrastructure, a brewery, soda water, sausage roll production, theater and concert tours, an ice factory, and the city had electricity. Not too bad for a town located in the middle of a desert in the early 1900s. But the diamond deposits were not bottomless, and when the field began petering out after World War I and the sandstorms and insufficient water reserves started making life too hard, the locals fled almost at once from the once rich small mining town. Today, Kolmanskop is a museum ghost town where photographers and those who love post-apocalyptic things take trips to under the locals' careful supervision. Finishing off our list is the story of a real hero and the struggle for existence. Holland Island, located in the Chesapeake Bay, used to be a paradise for fishermen and farmers. Here there was a school, business and cultural centers, a post office, a baseball team, stores, and markets. There was a lot of fishing here. The local fishermen's fleet numbered almost 100 boats and schooners. The place could have flourished until today, but nature had different plans. Erosion and tides destroyed the territory within just a few years, and no matter how hard the inhabitants tried to save their land with the aid of stone walls and scuttled boats, they failed to do it. By the 1920s, the island had been abandoned by the people completely and started to submerge gradually. At the end of the century, only a single solitary house was standing here.
Last house on Holland there.
One might think that the island could only be of interest to the local storks. But in 1995, it was bought by Stephen White, a former boatman who wanted to try and save the last house standing. But Mr. White's nostalgic feelings and his heroic efforts on trying to preserve what was left wasn't enough to save the house. It eventually collapsed in 2009, and in a couple of months, this modern version of Atlantis went into the sea for good. Well, that's all until next time. Thanks for watching.